piki ponky.
This is a voter who is watching all this unfold in public. His simple question is, did my vote matter? Or was it Chebukati's result? Or was it an opaque result? What happened?
An election shall be held in each constituency. A returning officer is defined in Section 2 of the Elections Act as a person who conducts an election. The chairman is merely enabled to declare. The conduct of the election, by dint of Article 138(2), is by 290 returning officers. The notice that they were required to publish under Regulation 12(2) was never published. The 290 notices from the 290 returning officers was never published.
The court should consider the conduct of this second respondent, Wafula Chebukati, and Professor Gulie and Mr. Molu. The common constant, they were the only commissioners who were in the 2017 general elections. They are the only commissioners who procured the elections technology. And they are the only commissioners again today who are dissenting. They are the minority commissioners who are trying to countermand a decision of the commission. Appropriate sanctions need to arise.
The design of the election was that this was to be a seamless transaction, and therefore the Forms 34A and the results therein ought to be the same as the Forms 34B and ought to be the same as the Forms 34C.
Clearly a result for the first respondent, that is Mr. Ruto, was being arrived at well before the tally was in. And each time work was being done to try and fit A and B into that result.
As the election started, the first petitioner did not start equally with the first respondent. The figures in the forms have been tampered with and are different. With regards to the results for the first petitioner,
second respondent has been issuing.
There's evidence of downloading and conversion of the forms from the system and thereafter uploading them with new information. It was an illegal, malicious, and unauthorized existence of commission staff who are not officially gazetted and mandated to be part of the electoral process, but who had access.
I implore this court and tell the chairman in the same voice that it has told the national executive that your power to declare does not give you any power to decide on what you declare.
Judge President, I have three very short clarifications that I want to seek from the team representing the first petitioner. The first one, perhaps I can direct it directly to Senior Counsel James Orengo. What is the relevance of rejected votes when computing the results or the outcome of a vote? The relevance of rejected votes. The second one, I would have addressed it to Ms. Soweto, but the team can deal with it, and you are not answering us today. The postponement of elections in certain areas, and you say this resulted in voter suppression. That people wake up one morning to go and vote for a particular category of candidates, that I go to the voting or polling station to vote for an MC A, or is it called MC? That people go to vote for senator, but not the other positions.
This to Senior Counsel Philip Murger. You addressed us on the PDF format of the forms. But in the pleadings, there is a JPEG question. Would you like to?
I would like to immediately correct that. It should be
Yes.
JPEG, not PDF.
Oh, okay. So it was JPEG. It was JPEG.
JPEG to CSV.
Okay. Would you then like to connect, because you addressed us, I think you didn't connect the JPEG to PDF and then you said CDF?
I will, but I would just like to clarify that that was a mistake.
Okay, okay. All right. But just clarify when you answer so that we can get it right.
A take up from where Justice Lenaula has with Mr. Ndwiga. Mr. Ndwiga, if you look at Article 38(2), every citizen has a right to participate in elections. How then do you reconcile that with your argument on Article 89? Because constituencies don't vote, citizens do. So again, prisoners, persons in the diaspora, how are they to be provided for if we are to follow your line of argument?
Judge President, the challenge one faces when they talk about the same subject at the end of a conversation by many people is that they find themselves repeating issues. But I will still ask what I had noted down during the proceedings, and you can choose the manner in which you will answer them. For Tim Orengo, my concern is, and actually for everyone who has spoken about the commission, what we have heard is what, about this commission, is what some time back we had someone describing, was it an accident or something on TV, and we were told it looked like a video and drama. At least that's how I perceived the submissions on the commission. And so my concern is, when did this commission become this dysfunctional? The effect of becoming that dysfunctional? What corrective measures were attempted, if any, and with what result?
Would refer to the lead petitioner, or rather the main petitioner, the first petitioner, if I may say, in the lead file, which actually initially was petition number 5, E005, Raila Odinga and Martha Karua versus the respondents. And later on, after consolidation, it became the lead file and file number 1. I'm concerned with the reliefs that are sought, the alternative relief sought. The first relief relates to the issue of scrutiny, which is ongoing, and the issue of the threshold, constitutional threshold of 50+1. And after the inquiry, you would like that after the scrutiny election and the inquiry on the election technology, all the claims which have been made, and that after there should be nullification of the results, and then an exercise of recount, and after the recount and tally, that the chair be directed to declare the petitioners as the petitioners, that's the two petitioners, Raila and Martha Karua, to be the successful, or to be the winners of the elections. That's one of the. So I was saying that we would like you to lay a basis, legal basis for this in your rejoinder. No remedy that has been pleaded is going to be taken casually. Every pleading.
I think all the questions I had have been asked, but I'd just like to follow up on what Justice Ibrahim asked. The team on the read petition. They have been called Team Senior Counsel Orengo. You have asked us to find the chairman culpable of various breaches of the Constitution. And as Judge Ibrahim explained, you have even told us to find that he cannot. Should we find that there should be a repeat election, he cannot preside. My dilemma is, this is a constitutional office order. Under Article 251(2) of the Constitution, there is a detailed procedure that is provided for the removal of a constitutional office order. And what I would like you to address us is, how do we go about that? Would we be making an order that is contrary to the Constitution? Because like the judge was explaining, we are a country that believes in the rule of...
I think this could go to, Mr. Orengo. You started us off with this elephant in the room, this 50% plus one. And I've read the submissions, I've read the affidavits. There is something still surrounding this question of voter turnout, the percentage. It's like the beginning of where the controversy is located. What is the relevance of the percentage of voter turnout to determining whether a candidate marshaled the magical number? And then back to Mr. Murgor, this staging. Again, I've been intrigued. I've been reading. If I understood you correctly, and if I understand the affidavits correctly, we are having this Form 34A. The original, which is filled, leaves the polling station to go to the National Talent Center by road, let's say, for ease of understanding. Its image leaves to go to the same destination, but this time by air. Somewhere along the line, in mid-air, the image is captured. And then all sorts of things are done before it is re-uploaded. Which means, therefore, if you go to that captured image, which has been re-uploaded, you will find different content from what it had at the polling station. So, to determine whether that has actually taken place, you would have to go now to the tallying center and locate that one that left by road and compare. Is it possible that that capturing in mid-air also somehow magically changes the content of the one that left by road?
Those are heavy, probing questions that now the team, of course, of Azimio has to answer. And one pivotal one that maybe we should broach as well is the issue of what the Chief Justice put there. Looking at the Constitution 251, that is Article 251, subsection 2, if you want to remove a constitutional officer, it says that a person desiring the removal of a member of a commission or a holder of an independent office on any ground specified in Clause 1 may present a petition to the National Assembly setting out the alleged facts constituting the ground. The National Assembly shall consider the petition, and if it is satisfied that it discloses ground under Clause 1, shall send the petition to the President. On receiving a petition under Clause 3, the President may suspend the member or office holder pending the outcome of the complaint and shall appoint a tribunal in accordance with Clause 5. The tribunal shall consist of a person who holds or has held office as a judge of a superior court who shall be the chairperson. Let's leave it at that. So in eventuality, are we also finding ourselves in on the sharpest edge of a dilemma where we are, if these critical questions that are being asked by the Chief Justice and what Azimio they've been trying to push for the removal of Chair Wafula Chebukati? The issue, first of all, is we don't have a parliament that has been sworn in right now. We have an outgoing president. He's not really handed over his instruments of power. He's still the president. If we are to go the tribunal way, without the swearing in of the National Assembly, where do we stand? Are we in sort of a constitutional crisis? Any of you? Let's begin with the politician first.
I've retired from politics. Now, I think...
Once a politician, always a politician.
I think in my view, Dibal, in my view, what is the mischief these people try? You know, when you go to a court, when you have there must be a mischief you want the court to address. What is it? Do they want this election to be nullified and another election held as required by law within 60 days? Or do they want this election nullified and no election for the next 1 year or so while they do their homework? Because they've seen the ground is hostile. They've seen if the repeat is done tomorrow, they will still perform probably not as well as they have even done. The way I look at it, I mean, there are many Kenyans think really what at the end of the day this petition seems to be about is nullify the election, send IEBC home, have no election for the next 1 year, while these guys try to go back to the drawing board and do their homework, which is not a very good thing. But because otherwise, you cannot say you want a rerun, the election nullified, at the same time you want the commission to be sent home. That means you don't want an election held. And this is the questions which they're asking. And they know the rules that you cannot send an independent commissioner home through a ruling of a court. It has still have to go through a petition has to go through parliament and their procedures, outlined in the constitution. What the court can do is they can say, yes, we think, the commissioner or the chairman or someone is culpable and he should be investigated, he should be, relieved of his whatever, but they cannot order that, we've dismissed Chebukati and he goes home, or we have convicted him, send him to committee. I mean, it still has to go back to the other institutions to carry out their work. And for the purpose of sending the commissioners home, it has to go back to parliament. And parliament is about who controls it. And I think, for example, the president-elect's side have already said, this guy is a hero. We are not sending him home anytime soon. So if the matter goes back to parliament and they have the numbers...
You know how it will actually end at the end of the day.
You know how it's going to end.
But I think to just take that point further, the Supreme Court cannot make that judgment on behalf of parliament.
Correct.
And the person who has to start that process must be the aggrieved party with the evidence that they have.
Correct.
And it can only be noted in the Supreme Court. I don't think they can actually rule and say this guy has to go. And they'll just send it back to the petitioners and say, now that, if you feel that this is really an issue, you have to take it through due process because there is a constitutional process that has been laid down. Somebody has to write a petition to Parliament. Parliament has to debate and decide whether that is correct. And if so, they will then say, fine, as a Parliament, all we can do is to say there is a case. We cannot actually adjudicate that case. Let the President now take it up and then take it through the executive system, the judicial system, set up that thing, and then once they've decided, they decide. Right? And they'll have to bring it back again. If I'm not wrong, at the end of that process, it has to go back again to the appointing agency, which is obviously Parliament, to then say yes.
And you know,
and so that will be an aside completely to the issue around the outcome of the elections. For me, that is a great case, which is going to be taken somewhere else. And I think what you're seeing building up is the fact that thing is actually going. It will be immaterial to the issue of the outcomes of the election?
You know, there is another very fundamental issue here, gentlemen. If you look at all this story around the IBC, the commission, the chairman and all that, there's a fundamental question. If peradventure you decide, because there's been selective acceptance of this electoral process, because do we have MCAs right now elected through this process, senators, members of parliament? If you decide to do away with the IBC as a whole, to disband it, then which parliament will preside over the appointment of a new? Because everybody, if this IBC was rogue, then it was rogue to everybody, not just the presidential elections. So you can't be right on one side and wrong on the other side. So me, I have a very conflicting issue in my head here. I'm asking myself, which parliament can preside over what we are talking about, i.e. impeaching or removing Wafula Chebukati's commission? Because if it's to be disbanded, it has to be the due process, as you have read in section 251 of the Constitution, has to be followed, and it has to go through parliament. Which parliament? If this parliament that we are talking about has come through a faulty IBC. In law they say namo dat quote non habet. You can't give a better title than you have. So if peradventure they find that IBC chair is wrong with his own commission that has been dysfunctional, it means then you remove all the results that were announced for the entire country. And which then puts us in
I don't think so. If you find an individual culpable, the whole system is not gone.
No, but
going back to
what
you said, the whole of the IEBC is a structure of people.
Correct.
Now, if the chairman has got an issue and you remove the chairman, it doesn't mean because the head is not working. This is one of those. This is one of the opposite. Where if the head is rotten, the rest of it is not.
No, fish rots from the head, they say.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is the electoral process, they have already said that the commission is dysfunctional. So the two of you against the two of us means the
who has said? It's just a petitioner who has said.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the probing question has been from the judges, how dysfunctional is it?
Yeah.
Where did it begin?
That's
I think
asking.
based on the questions that the judges were asking yesterday, you get a sense that even the judges feel some of the pleadings and some of the statements being made really by the petitioners, all the 8 or 9 of them, don't seem to make sense, and some of them seem to contradict each other. You know, you want the election, you want the Raila should be the one who has won,
yes,
but you have challenges about the IBC itself, the way it conducted things. You are raising concerns about the integrity of the whole, and then at the same time you want the voting to be, the verification to be redone. And there's a lot of things, the way they put so many things there, but they seem to agree, all of them, on one thing, that if they can discredit, the chairman as the main witness, the main player in the thing, then the whole election can then be nullified. But I think, like when you go to a criminal case court, when you nullify a witness, you discredit a witness of the prosecution, then you can get away with the case will be. But I think in this case, this is an institution which conducted an election. You can get even Chebukati out of the way, but it's not going to give you a nullity in the results. I think these things are two different things. I don't know why. It's the same thing when you look at the report in 2017 when the petitioner went to court. The issues were the same. They accused the IBC of the system of being hacked, and the votes were stolen in the hacking. The chairman was rogue. I mean, if you read about it, actually, you'll find it's more or less the same thing you accuse. And the judges arrived at the same opinion, and they said, look, IBC, yes, go and investigate. And what happened? IBC was audited by the Auditor General. IBC was audited by Parliament, and so many reports were published on including the billions. You remember that have been this whole issue about procurement, for example. The argument then was that most of the procurement was actually done by the CEO. It's done by the CEO's office. You remember, and then the chairman had to sack the CEO, Chiloba, you remember that? And Parliament so looked at all those things, the Auditor General's report. So no action was taken because these same people, let me tell you, gentlemen, these people who are now petitioning are the same people particularly including even the president's party, are the same ones who brought Chebukati in the first place. When the interviews for Chebukati or the appointment was done, he was the 9th placed on the list. They picked him because they thought he was the guy they could use. And I mean, you cannot really at every time you play a different game and expect to see a different, it can't work that way. I mean, and they had a chance to remove him after the election when the Supreme Court said, okay, that election was conducted badly. They should have said,
should have begun then. Yeah,
yes,
isn't it? Yeah.
They didn't.
But I think
but the 4 commissioners, you remember, who resigned at that time, they were all given appointments. Now you got 4 new ones last year, whom you unilaterally appointed because the other party, the presidential election teams, were not involved. And you have 4 out of 7 commissioners. They are a majority. For a whole year, they have been planning to conduct the election. Then you come again and say, 2 commissioners who remained over from the other ones who I mean, some of these things.
I think one other point is that the returning officer for the presidential election is actually the chair of the commission.
Yes.
The individual.
Yes.
That is a person who has been appointed to be the returning officer for the presidential election by law. So when you talk about the petition for the presidential election, it can only be one commissioner.
That they are referring to.
That they're referring to, not the commission. Is the commission the person who's going to sign off that form, whatever, or is it that individual?
I think that was put forth as very not accurate.
Yeah.
That it is the IBC. It is not the returning officer.
It's the returning officer.
The returning officer is the returning officer, the IEBC.
Okay.
Every election has a returning officer.
Yeah.
And the presidential election, the returning officer
is the chairman. Yeah.
The issue now, the other 4 are complaining about is that they're saying, yes, you're the chairman, but as a commission, we need to agree on the results.
And then as a chairman,
I mean, so, but the thing is...
That is the contention that they'll bring in. But that, again, I said, is a housekeeping issue.
Of course.
Because
right?
I agree with you.
The housekeeping issue is purely the process. And once the process is sorted out, the outcomes may not necessarily be challenged. But if the process itself, the housekeeping, their governance system that they have, in terms of arriving at what the returning officer should announce, that now is where the argument is going to take place. So I think the issue of the validity of all the other elections, I think, then pales because it is only that one returning officer that they're arguing about. And they're calling that one returning officer the commission. Right? So I think
because
the issue of talking about the commission all the time.
The Constitution has been quoted, variously, and people maybe are reading differently. But I'm not really, I'm deficient in terms of law. I'm not really a lawyer, but so I'm just as a layman as everyone else out there who is trying also to understand. But this is what they've been saying, Article 138, subsection C. After counting the votes in the polling stations, maybe you'll argue this is the polling stations, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall tally and verify the count and declare the results. That is the IBC. So if you are to decipher that, what does it really mean?
You see, there is the Constitution. But the details are all in the Elections Act and in the regulations. That is where how to conduct it. In finer details, everything is there. So when you say the commission has very many officials.
Connotations.
Let me just give you an example. Last week, the petitioner complained when they announced the election for Mombasa. You remember, he issued a statement saying that Chebukati should not conduct the election of Mombasa and he should hand over to Cherere, the deputy.
Yes.
Immediately that evening, IBC issued a statement and said, sorry, my friend, you're mistaken. Election for the Mombasa county is done by the returning officer of Mombasa. It's not done by the chairman. So, I mean,
understand your law.
In this confusion, people think the commission, the word commission is because that is an institution. But within the act and the regulations, there are guidelines on who actually does. And so they are returning officers for every election. For the presidential, the returning officer is him.
Is the chairman.
And let me tell you, the commission is like a board. They are people who do all the work. The results are collected from the returning officers in the constituency, from the polling station presiding. There are people who bring all and the secretariat. They're the ones who do all the tallying and everything. The back office that does everything. These guys, as a commission, as a board, will get the results presented to them. And so I think This whole thing about
But the question is,
and also I think just to complete this, when you sat in Bomas, I sat in Bomas several days as the thing was being done. The people who are inside that circle, that is the commission.
That's the commission.
The people who are doing the work,
tallying,
there and
you saw
else.
that whole,
and then they take it to him,
to the chairman. Yep.
Yeah. Now that is a process.
And they were announcing it. Each commissioner takes time to announce the results.
That is where.
But you've heard from the allegations that some of the commissioners were reassigned some
Forget
duties.
about
they were there.
Okay, this is what is it part of the
asked
video and the drama that you're talking
The
about?
question by Lenaola, the judge Lenaola yesterday.
Yes.
And he said, this group, he said, we watched for a whole week as you announced
Everyone was
the
announcing.
results. So when did you start finding that there was a problem?
Yeah.
You saw that question?
Yeah, I did.
I mean, it's common sense that everyone saw them taking turns.
All of them took
So
turns.
it's just that when the results does not favor the person you want, then you say, sorry, I'm
Were
not
they
doing it."
were they under duress?
Of course.
You know, that's what I was no.
The affidavits filed to that effect.
They were under duress. So we'll expect maybe that is the reaction. If my boss is really, breathing down my neck and I have a foot on my neck as well, at the end of the day, what will I do?
Can't breathe.
I can't breathe.
But you know, the beauty about this election, which is a learning point, which was very good from the previous election, which is where they said that the results are the results at the polling station. Right? So all this stuff that is happening, if there is any doubt,
it's for improvement.
Just go back.
Refer to the source document.
The source document, and that's it. You're done.
But Patrick,
it wasn't the only election at the polling station. The other 5 you have no problem.
Which are the polling stations?
And the same done by the same clerks and agents.
Yep. So the
they ticked off all the others. This one they said
tallying by one particular returning officer is the issue.
Yes.
Right. There's all these other returning officers who have done their bit, and their aggregation, right? It's like each of them is a voter. Each polling station is like each of them is a voter.
Yes.
And they're bringing in the outcome of that. So, like polling station number 1, the outcome of the presidential election is that I'm voting for X, and that is what they bring as a polling station.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the national tallying,
constituency tallying, and then to the county tallying, and then to the
you know,
at the end of the day,
the
tallying is of that one polling station that brought their result.
Yes.
Right? And that is what the national tallying station does.
And even this
aggregation of that.
And you know, even this argument, particularly in Mount Kenya, that we had no agents. Those are all stories. Let me tell you, I participated in elections several times. In a polling station, parties have a lot of agents, because if you have a Zimio coalition, you have agents for the president, for the governor, for the senator, for all those. So even if the presidential agent was not there, there would be the agents for the MP, for the other, for all those other offices. They're all in the same. Who look after? So there's no way that when it comes to president, we didn't know what was going on, and we were only concerned about our election as the senators and MPs and whatever. No, everybody knows that this is the same polling station, and you pick one ballot paper on the 6 boxes, and you go into the booth and tick. So all the other 5 are okay, but this 6th one you're saying, we didn't know what happened. No, it doesn't work that way. I think the fact is that polling station, when you finish voting in the evening at 6 and the counting is done, everybody is issued with that form 34A.
Yes.
34A is for the governor, for the president. There's 34B and C and D for depending on all the other offices.
They're posted.
So, and they're posted there, and each one of you collects yours and you scan and text to your respective whatever. And this guy does that transmission when everybody is there.
Transparent.
That's why the court said we need to get now the physical one to come. And you saw the judge asking, assuming even this one was not right, are you saying the physical one was also taken on the way when it was?
The one by air and the one by road. I think we are gradually growing up politically. I think that's what I would say. And there's a lot of things that when you're playing football as kids, and somebody scores a goal, the fight that happens in front of the goal.
Actually, Patrick, the worst is when the referee has given a penalty in the dying minutes, and you are there now, and this is the people will protest and say, you actually saw the guy punching the ball, but you don't want to accept that it has actually, it's a penalty and you're about to lose in the 90th minute.
It was
And
the
I
hand
think-
of God.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I want to say something, Patrick. Patrick, there's something you have said, you have repeated twice here now about this country growing into a certain direction. And I want to differ with you because we seem not to learn from the past, because you must learn from your past experiences and project the future based on the past. If you look at what happened in 2013, there was a claim about cheating. Actually, way back in 2012, 2002, 12, even as far back as we can remember, there's always been this clamor. And we don't seem to find the exact point where we need to fix this problem. So if we are learning, I mean, and they say it's only a fool who does not learn. Have we become that foolish as a country that we have not learned? Because if you are walking into an electoral process that you feel the arbiter or the judge is not going to give you a fair hearing, and you walk into it, what results do you expect? As a country, if we felt so bad about this commission, then we should have done the decent thing. Having learned from the past, we raised issues. If we didn't raise issues and you walk into this election, is it fair for this country and the electorate to then say this was very unfair? I'm really just wondering.
James, does the country have a problem with the IBC?
I don't
Right?
know.
I think
don't know.
the
I'm
essence
just-
here
I'm
is that
just
the
wondering.
country at large, their experience of the IBC is different.
Yes.
Patrick Obath, I went into a polling station.
Yes.
I picked up my 6 pieces of paper, right? I went and exercised my voting right, and I had no problems.
Yes,
I put
at
them
all.
in the ballot box.
Yes.
And at that point, my
You're done.
engagement with the IBC is finished.
Clean.
So you have 14 million people who put their ballots into the ballot box, or whatever number that it was. They have no problems. If they had them, they were sorted out at that point. That's when you know whatever you saw happening at Bomas with guys coming up and raising hell happened in the polling stations as well. You had polling stations where I saw the agents jumping up and saying, no, don't do this, whatever it is, and they all then
Sorted
eventually
it
it was
out,
sorted out, and
Yeah.
then everybody
Continue.
sat down and the thing continued, and they sorted them out, and the voting was finished. Even the queuing, guys were jumping queues and they're saying you're stuffing your people ahead of us, whatever it is, and so forth. All that happened. So I think the experience of Kenyans about the IEBC is very positive.
Yes.
The voter.
Yes.
Now, when you go to the next level, which is the aggregation process, that is where now you begin to think, and that is not the Kenyan, that is the politician. It's not the Kenyan. The Kenyan actually, I think,
Exercise their rights,
they're happy with what the IEBC does. And when I'm talking about the maturity coming up, is that the politicians, these guys who now take over, from one election to the next, there is issues, they are fixed. There is issues, they are fixed. There is issues, they are fixed. We run out of issues after some time.
I know.
Right? If you look at this issue of the transparency of the the transparency of the transmission of
The
the
court
whole
pronounced
thing,
itself, yes.
that ruling from 2017 about
Yes.
where that thing happens and the
Source
way it is brought in,
documentation.
that was a huge change. And that's
Okay.
what I'm talking about, the maturity happening.
Okay, in that context,
right?
yes,
And as we go through each of these things where the politicians are having issues, that the voter doesn't. It's a politician that has issues. We are going to get a much better system coming out, and it's going to mature over time. And I'm saying we're taking baby steps. We're going through.
So from your own estimation, within IBC we don't really have a problem. You as a citizen, you have no qualms with IBC as a politician.
The IBC has done for me.
Yes.
What I as a voter, they've delivered for me.
Under very difficult circumstances.
Right?
They've delivered for
Under
you.
as a voter.
Okay.
I have voted.
We have
and I
Kibe,
put it in.
who the voter there, she feels that Kibe was representing one of the petitioner there. I can't remember her name. And
Yes.
that critical vote. Yeah, she feels that vote for her never really counted.
Because
IBC has not really delivered for that particular a voter at the end of the day, and she's now petitioned the court. You might be
her
feeling
personal vote.
Her personal vote.
Now that is fine. I mean, that can be taken on board if the IBC at my polling station.
So that one really goes to show that we have different views. You could be satisfied with what IBC has done. Someone else on the ground is not really satisfied with what IBC has done.
You see,
and the critical question is:
Let me answer that
do
question.
we have an IBC
Ibal,
as it is right
with
now?
respect, that question was even questioned by one of the judges. You see, an And remember what the judges asked.
The 700
asked, how do you know IBC did not make preparations for the persons with disability with regards to the vote? How did you know they didn't have a policy on that? So the thing is, you had no complaint, even as the persons with disability, about all the other elections, all the other 5 seats, and you are coming to court only when it comes to the presidential. I mean, it's suspect, really, the timing and the way this is.
No.
I mean,
we had one of the commissioners here, and I asked that particular question about disabilities as well, and we asked, you have a blind person who really comes to the polling booth, and you said we can have the assisted. These are the assisted voters.
Yes.
So, who is responsible to actually go with the assisted voter who is blind to that polling booth? And how can we trust?
It was actually
This is what I wanted just to know. Yeah,
there is a law.
If he's come with a person from, I can trust. Maybe this is votes, and you can see people also split within households. Your wife, your spouse might be voting for another party, and you're voting for another party. I am blind, and I know she's on another side. I'm the husband. I walk to that particular booth at the end of the day. How do I trust that?
It's not about the bar is not being blind. Majority of the voters in the rural areas who are not literate are all assisted voters.
Yes.
For information, in case you don't know, if you go to a polling station in my area, more than 70% of them get assisted.
But I'm asking you specifically for the other abled.
Yeah,
no, you see, this is what I'm asking about, because it seems there's no legislation.
Don't say there isn't. The judge said, don't say there isn't. The question is, you need to ask, how do you know IBC does not have rules or regulations regarding them? That's the issue they asked. Have you got to IBC to ask?
The question I pose is, why don't we braille this particular, or even for the other?
Then you'll say the cost of the election will be expensive. You're the same ones who say it is the most expensive election in the world. Now you want everything to be done, even for I mean, honestly.
Let me say this.
There's a bigger constituency of that. You should consider even the brailing of this particular.
Then don't complain about the cost of the election.
I think that is where I talk about maturity of the system. Because if that becomes, if we believe that is necessary, we'll print 46,000 times
22 million papers, because you will know you'll estimate how many people
times the same number of because you don't
I'm
know
talking about the number of booklets, because you have to do an estimate. So you have 46,000 polling stations, and you'll have a booklet of 100 of those things, or 50, whatever, times the 6 elections.
So when you are registering voters, Patrick, you won't know when that voter, whether that voter is blind or not. When you are registering voters,
you have it available.
So how do you provide in a polling station? Maybe there is nobody there.
But you provide. That's the point. You just provide.
Then the cost comes in.
The cost comes in because you provide. So when somebody comes in and they say, you say, okay, fine, we will give you the one that is in braille.
Good.
And you go in, and it may only be 2 people in the polling station, and you've got 100 whatever.
So it just gives an example of blind. There is the one with problems with the hands.
Yes.
So
that was a question.
Wait.
And even for the biometrics, I'm sorry, just to clarify where you're coming, I'll give you that time. Even for the biometrics, maybe your extremities are not there completely. You cannot even key on the biometrics itself. You don't have your thumbs. And we've had cases even for the other abled, their fingerprints. I'm working on my farm. My fingerprints are completely washed off.
So how did you register?
How did you?
How did you register?
You just use the same system you registered with.
But how did you register? That's a good question.
That's the point. That's what I'm asking. And I've been wanting to say
people have been voting. All those people have been voting. For the last 50 years, they have been voting.
But I want to know how they're voting.
No,
but I want to know how they've been voting.
You find out from IBC.
You know, I was an observer, an election observer in Naivasha. And the same way and all...
No. Can I interrupt you? Because I think I interrupted Bill Okero to Okay, fine. Fantastic. Continue.
What I was saying is, I was an observer and I saw an old granny who came there. An old granny can be treated the same way as a blind person, but she has a vote and she has struggled with biometrics. It refused to work. And the presiding officer took a photograph of her ID. And it reflected she's a registered voter. And now she didn't know. So all the agents are called together. And then she's asked, okay, for president, who do you want? And she says, okay, read for me the names. You read, it says, haya, weka huyo. Senator, who do you want?
It's been
Read
like
the
this for
names.
the last 50 years.
That's what they did.
It's not
And
something
for a
new.
blind person or a physically impaired person,
Same
that
thing.
is the same process. Otherwise, if you say you do Braille, it's going to be an expensive process. You will never be able to do any election here, because how many people are blind in this country? How many people have no limbs? You have to provide, and that's why it is important to then have agents, so that the agents then will be saying, okay, me nataka Patrick. So then you just make sure that Shosho has actually ticked, you have ticked Patrick for her. Me nataka Bilo for senator, you tick. All the
Not
agents
only
are in
that, but
agreement.
more
Then they sit back.
importantly, Dibal, more importantly, if those groups of Kenyans had an issue, they should have raised it at the time of registration of voters, so that they ask the IBC, can you provide for us this and this opportunity for the purpose of voting and for the purpose of registration? You don't wait. Elections have ended. There is a petition against the presidency. You join the team and say, I have an issue also. I didn't vote. I mean, that's obviously it's not in good taste. You know that these things are all politics.
All right. We want to gravitate, unless you have other comments on the issue of IBC and procurement. This was a problem, yes, so that we know, and then we make things very limpid with procurement. Who procures? Because this has become a very contentious issue. At the end of the day, we had also from some of the petitioners, we had 3 IBC commissioners who have been running the entire commission, either with the procurement. We had also Judge Professor Gitu raising some question on contracting lawyers at the end of the day. Let's just listen to that particular bite, so that the IBC question and the procurement.
Court should consider the conduct of this second respondent, Wafula Chebukati, and Professor Gulie and Mr. Molu. The common constant, they were the only commissioners who were in the 2017 general elections. They are the only commissioners who procured the elections technology. And they are the only commissioners again today who are dissenting.
It is not the work of the commissioners of IEBC, whether in majority or in minority, to procure any services. That flies totally in the face of the procurement law in this country. As we sit here now, the 4 who purport to have procured have committed a criminal offense and should be treated as such.
All right. So the question is on the procurement of the technology also, was it an illegality? That from the 3 commissioners that were there before we had the 4? And looking at the procurement law, what does it really say? Especially when it comes to, the commissioners and the procurement itself. Let me just pick the brains of
Thank you, Dibal.
James Mureo.
But you see, if you listen to this whole proceeding, it is you said, I said, you said, I said. But I know that I sit as a chair of a board, the Micro and Small Enterprise Authority. And I know I have never, for the time I've been there, I don't even know what is procured. I don't know how it's done and by who it is done. I have a CEO who runs that with his management team. That is the simple and straight answer to this. That whereas the lawyers and everybody else can say that is the commission, that I would the only role I have in the procurement process is to approve the procurement plan. And once the board has approved that, and it's up to the management under the CEO then to execute that procurement plan. So when a lawyer says that, unless he has absolute evidence showing that this tendering was done and brought to the chairman sat with the 2 commissioners and decided we'll award it to Patrick or to Dibal or to Bilo, that is a very, very difficult thing to prove. But for me, I know that the commissioners, even when you look at there was also another issue that was raised about the legal representation of the 4 dissenting commissioners against the IEBC. And the Supreme Court pronounced and said, listen, this is an in-house thing, but as far as we are concerned, it's the chairman and has come in with the representation of IEBC. As chair of the commission, he comes in with the right representation, and it's up to you guys. If you feel you want other representation, it's up to you. I would wonder loudly so whether the 4 dissenting commissioners are paying for their legal services directly, or is it the IBC that's going to pay, and how did they procure the services of these legal professionals? I mean, it's a very straightforward.
You've not really addressed my question.
The insinuation.
I've said
the insinuation that is coming here is, I think, is very simple. When you procure as an organization, you have a procurement plan,
yes,
which is approved by the board.
Yes.
Now, when you're going to procure legal services, that is approved within the plan,
Yes.
and then the management goes and procures them,
yes.
and then you say we are going to have three teams
lawyers, yes.
or 10 teams serving the commission. That is approved at the planning level.
Yes.
Then the procurement of those 1, 10 or 2, whatever it is done by management,
Yes.
and then it's approved, and they're brought in. That we have now got 10 sets of law companies that can represent us. So if there is any representation to be done, even for me, if I have an accident
Yes.
as a board member,
Yes.
right, in a vehicle that belongs to the board, to that organization,
Yes.
one of those lawyers is the one who will have to represent me
Precisely.
in that process, because
Yes.
they've been procured for that purpose, right? So if it comes to a situation like now, when the commission needs to be represented, and you wanted different lawyers to do it, you would have to do exactly the same thing. You would have to sit as a commission and say we need a different set of lawyers to represent us for this activity. That has then got to be passed as a board resolution. Then management then goes and sources them,
Yes.
and brings them to the board and says these are the lawyers who are going to serve you as a board. If the board decides that Patrick Obath needs a lawyer, the same process obtains. The board has to decide and say Patrick Obath needs to be specially represented as a member of the board, as an individual, and the board has approved that you procure a lawyer for him. And the same process is done. So you cannot, in any way, in any board, in any organization that is a parastatal, a government institution, whatever, go against that rule. That is where it is. In the private sector, you have levels of authority.
Yes.
And there are certain items which are above a certain level, threshold, which has to come to the board, and the board then actually appoints a procurement committee to deal with that thing. That's different.
Yeah.
But within this particular
government is laid out.
area of operation,
I think
is very clear.
In this particular case
Yes.
of IBC, following the nullification in 2017, the issue of procurement did come up. In fact, it was one of the key issues also in the petition in 2017. That Kim's kit, procurement, and you remember those French companies.
Yes.
These things were all raised in the petition. And then subsequently, of course, if you look at the Auditor General's report of how those things were procured and so forth, the procurement is all done by the Secretariat, the Chief Executive Officer. The Commission, like he says, is like a board. They are responsible for running of the institution, but they don't do all this technical work, especially procurement. By the way, the procurement laws are very strict. It's done by the technical team. There are people who are who do those things. You cannot be a commissioner or a board director or a minister in a ministry and you're the one who procures things. No, you don't. And so these people know, by the way. And when you remember during the BBI debate, the same petitioners are the ones who were arguing. When the other side was arguing that these guys have no quorum, there are only 3 commissioners, they can't. And one of the arguments raised by this same petitioners was that look, IBC can even run without the commission. I remember most of these lawyers who are now arguing, saying you don't. This is a commission. There's a secretariat. You don't need the board, the commission. The commission. They're the same ones arguing, and later, of course, the matter went to court, and the court said even the 3 can be a quorum and they can run the commission.
The quorum, yes.
And so it doesn't make sense that today you come around and say procurement is done by the chairman or by Molu or done by so and so. Obviously, these lawyers are. But
are they onto something? But if this, let's talk about the technology bit. And we've had, even reading some of his petitions, that some of the commissioners were heavily involved in this procurement. They've been to, especially the ballot papers printing. They've been to Greece. They were involved in these negotiations. How are the commissioners found negotiating for these ballot papers?
You see,
and you remember the saga? Yes, the Greece was here.
Can that evidence be presented?
Deval, this is a court. It will not rely on all those stories you guys write in your media. What they rely on
evidence
is present the evidence. If there is any document to show that yes, indeed, this procurement of this Kim's kit was done by Mr. X, and Mr. X is the wife of so and so, and this, and they did this. That's why the court is there.
Yeah.
You present that then, but you cannot simply say, stories of what we read every day in the media for the last 10 years about Kim's kit.
Perhaps if, I'm just playing a case scenario, if there was procurement and some of his commissioners were involved, what does that really portend?
Let me use my simple understanding. If that person went against the law, and there's evidence that has been adduced that they went and did whatever it is, then it is a case against the individual for breaching the procurement process, right?
An individual?
Then, yes.
That commissioner or that individual?
That person who went, it's you actually breached the law, right? If the commission sent you, if there is a minute that says we ask Bilo to go,
then
and whatever it is,
covered.
then we as a commission
take responsibility. Very true.
Right?
But why would you be an individual who's going to procure ballot papers? It has to be the commission.
No. Debal.
But we're talking about procurement. What will you be going to do? I'm just giving a scenario.
Let me finish my line of discussion. If, however, Patrick Obath has got a deal in that particular thing, and I decide through manipulation to be sent by the same commission to go there and do something, so that is, I have actually arranged for that whole thing to happen. You can see it becomes a personal culpability, right? It therefore means that you now begin to question the motive of going to do that thing. As an individual, you go out, whatever it is, which has not been sanctioned and approved by the commission. And if I am found to have gone there and evidence is adduced, I can then be accused of corruption as an individual, because I have circumvented and have gone round the procurement laws and gone and done something that is completely against the regulations. Then the court will find me culpable on that particular issue.
Can I just take a short break, then I circle back with you as well? But all these components, the cogs that we have here, they're all in this chain block that you're speaking of this particular case. Somehow it cascades somewhere. It cannot just be an individual that went on behalf of IBC. Right? We are saying perhaps if the board really came up with the process itself and they enroll in procurement, and they were in Greece, some of them, what does it portend for the case? We'll take a short break. When we circle back, we'll come back with you. Thanks.